Hello, I'm Shane Coolwell, President of the York County Young Democrats, here with Samantha Fulham,
Hi.
our Vice President, and our guest today, candidate for the 94th District for the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, Steve Snell.
Hi.
So we're just going to jump right into it and help everyone get to know Steve a little bit more. So we'll open with one of our standard questions, which is, what does being a Democrat mean to you?
I think being a Democrat means that I care about people. I think that there's a long history of the Democratic Party being the party that stands up for working class Americans, whether it goes back to the institution of Social Security or fighting for minimum wage. I think we're the party, and somehow that's gotten a little bit lost in the last couple of years in the message. But the bottom line is that our message has to be that we're there to support working class, middle class Americans. And I guess the other thing is that I would add, as a Democrat, I don't view government as evil. I think some people do, but I think that there needs to be in our society a balance. Some people fear big government, some people fear large corporations, but I think one needs to be strong enough to watch the other one.
Absolutely.
Because I think we've seen too many cases, whether it's Big Pharma, whether it's Wells Fargo, whether it's Volkswagen, where left unchecked, corporate America doesn't do its best.
Yeah, absolutely. There needs to be some type of authority over them.
Definitely. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 68 and I've lived 65 of those years in central Pennsylvania. I have a wife. Between my wife and I, Glenda, we have 5 children, 11 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. I know I don't look too old, not that old, but I've served 30 years of my career as the executive officer of the Realtors Association of York and Adams Counties. And in that position, it's been a lot like running a small business, because it wasn't a nonprofit. I had a staff of 10. I had to manage a budget that was 7 figures. I oversaw a merger. So there was a lot of business-related skills required. And it also meant working with a membership that was largely Republican. And I was able to do that effectively. So I guess the bottom line is that I think I've got some of the background that really would be helpful in this position. The Realtors Association had an active political wing. So that's a little bit of my background. I taught high school for a little while.
Where at?
I taught actually at the Dauphin County Technical School outside of Harrisburg. I taught high school social studies.
Oh, cool. You're a history buff.
A little bit of a history buff, yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot that history can do to inform us in today's political world.
Definitely.
Absolutely, because you have to learn from history so you don't repeat it.
Yeah, that's what they say. I'm not so sure we're always smart enough to follow that advice out.
Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of leads into my next question. What made you decide to pursue a degree in sociology and then secondary education eventually?
Well, I think it really relates to the same reason I'm a Democrat. I mean, sociology was really the study of people in community, and I thought that was an important thing to know to help determine how to bring communities together. And then when it came to social studies, which I got my master's in education from Millersville, a lot of that had to do, at least as far as my motivation, was to really instill civic responsibility amongst the next generation.
Can you tell us about some of your duties as a member of the York Housing Coalition?
Well, the York Housing Coalition, which was actually instituted as the York Housing Advisory Commission, is a group of professionals that have come together to really discuss some of the housing-related issues that our community faces. An example would be we've identified the housing needs for low-income seniors as being a major issue that needs to be addressed in York County. And that's throughout the county.
Yes.
It's not just an urban area issue.
I found that when I was canvassing people, that was a
thing with senior citizens. That was their biggest,
Right.
you know.
Right, and the property tax, of course,
Oh,
feeds
yes,
into
yes,
that.
yes.
But the housing coalition really brings these professionals together to look at all the rungs in the housing ladder, from basic shelter to the for-profit market rate housing. And I think a healthy community has to consider the needs of shelter for the community at large. One of the things that we do every other year is we co-sponsor a housing summit. So in 2018, there'll be a housing summit, which will be a full-day regional program, which will bring housing professionals from all over South Central Pennsylvania to come together to look at best practices and what kinds of common issues we are facing in each of our own communities, and whether there's some possible or probable answers that we can work on together.
Yeah, cool.
So what do you love about the district that you hope to represent, District 94?
I think one thing is its diversity. There's, the district includes suburbs directly outside of the city of York. It includes, small boroughs from Red Lion to York Anna and East Prospect, all the way down to Delta. It includes farmland and the Amish country. So that diversity is good. Now, I won't say that I don't think there might have been a little bit of gerrymandering in putting it together, but it's a beautiful district, and I love the sense of community that exists in a lot of the small towns in the borough, or in the York 94.
What is your position on eventually legalizing recreational marijuana?
Okay, this is an area, I guess, where I have to admit being a little bit more conservative. I'm a child of the 60s, and I won't say I've never tried marijuana, but that's 40 or 50 years ago, and I could probably count on one hand, maybe 2 or 3 fingers, the times I did. I would have voted with some concerns for medical marijuana. I think that when it comes to recreational marijuana, I think we really need to wait and see some of the results, how it's worked in other states that have already instituted. And I think the jury's still out on that. There hasn't been enough experience with that just yet. It's an area where I am a little bit more conservative. That said, I think that one of the things we really need to examine has to do with the area of enforcement and punishment.
Yeah.
I mean, and that doesn't just deal with marijuana, it deals with a lot of the areas of drugs. I would think that at the stage we're in right now, with marijuana, a minor misdemeanor is the most that it should be considered.
I agree with that.
We shouldn't be clogging up our jails and whatnot.
Absolutely, that's a big problem, and there are other drugs that are clogging up our
Yeah.
jails too, and that's not the way to address it.
So how would you legislate differently than Representative Saylor, who is currently the Republican incumbent of the district you have to represent?
Well, I think primarily the major difference is that I'm not going to be as highly partisan.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that frustrates me about Stan is that it's always the other side of the aisle that's at fault. And I think of myself as a pretty damn independent individual. And I won't always follow the party line. I'm going to think for myself. And as a result, it may mean that there are times that I don't necessarily ingratiate myself with leadership. But I think that the only time we're going to get anything done is if we come out of our corners and try to figure out how to find the common ground and work together. What's the old saying? I think it's not such an old saying, but the saying about let's not sacrifice the better in search of the perfect. And I think we need to figure out how to. And some of this is a result of gerrymandering, but we've got extremes in a lot of our legislators, and there's an unwillingness to work with people on the other side of the aisle.
Yeah.
I will do that.
Yeah, and that's a significant difference. A difference that we need right now. We need free thinkers, and not everyone's so hyper partisan. It doesn't really work out usually.
Yeah, there's less accomplished, and I think that leads to the frustration of the public,
Yeah.
where they see that there are issues that need to be addressed, and there's no movement forward because everybody wants it their way or no way, and that can't be the way we approach government.
Yeah.
So if elected, what would you like to accomplish while in office?
Well, I think one of the things that we really need to look at, and that is how to better position financially middle class America. I think that it's an issue that nationally and locally is serious. We've seen major corporations do well while wages for working class America have been stagnant for years. And that needs to be addressed, and it can be addressed at the state level in a variety of ways, whether it's, including but not exclusively tax policy. Education, and it's another one, where in order to help the next generation to achieve more, we have to be willing to spend more money on education. And there's a huge inequity right now between what some school districts are able to spend on education and others that can't. And some of the poor districts really struggle.
That's a shame, yeah.
Yeah, especially because of the years that they form, as adults, so we can't really worry about financial situations, restraining from bettering the people who will represent all of us eventually.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on someday moving to a single-payer healthcare system?
Well, let me begin by saying that I am absolutely convinced that this nation can and should make healthcare a right. Everybody has the right to adequate healthcare. In reference to single payer, I think that there's a lot that still needs to be studied, but I am open to fully considering it.
All right, I like what I'm hearing.
So, a nice little fluff question to end. Who is someone that inspires you?
Well, this may sound hokey, but I would say it's my parents. My parents are alive and well at age 93.
That's awesome.
They read the paper every day. They stay up with current events.
They have so much knowledge to offer.
And they never miss going to the polls. They voted their whole lives, and they've really spent their whole lives in community, supporting the communities in which they live, including the retirement community that they live in now. So I would hope that I can grow up to be just like my parents.
Isn't it funny? Because everyone that we ask that question, they say their parents.
Yeah.
Do
Every
they?
single
Okay.
person.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
makes sense.
No, but it's
Yeah.
they're who shape you.
That's been my inspiration. That's been my inspiration.
Me too. Well, that's all we have today, but we'll be having Steve back more to get to know him a little bit further. But subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay in tune with what's going on in the midterm elections.